I'm Esther.
And I'm Susie. And this is Limited Time Only.
Brief, a pick-me-up in shorter podcast form.
Oh, by the way, went bonkers in the charity shop again today.
Oh, did you?
20 quid. 20 quid.
45
for 6 items of clothing, a game of Twister and a mug. Oh, not just any old Twister.
Generation game.
Dutch Twister.
Oh my God.
It's a Dutch version of Twister, which is exactly the same as English Twister, but it's just got words in Dutch on it.
Just got, yeah.
And
a spliff.
A spliff. That was never on the generation game.
No.
6 bags of marijuana, an ironing board.
What a cuddly toy.
Actually, that's where the marijuana is.
Yeah. Up the bear's bum.
Okay.
So, good morning, Susie.
Guten Morgen.
Good morning. Good morning. Today, it's limited time only brief, and we have 10 minutes to chat on a topic suggested by one of our brilliant LTO community. And today, it is Miss Heather. I'm not going to give her surname away because I don't know, like, people might start stalking her or something. So,
well, I mean, obviously, because she's excellent.
Famous now. Because we go out globally, you know, we're friends with Richard Curtis now, so and Emma Freud, and
we've got listeners
Tessie
in India.
Hawkes and H.M. Steps and Dom Jolly. So Heather says, how old were you when you became aware of politics, and what are your earliest memories of processing? What were you understanding at the time?
Oh, I mean, it's a pick-me-up in podcast form.
No, but this is
I don't have the mental capacity for this.
I can tell you mine. I can tell you mine. So
you can start with yours, but first of all, before you start, I'm going to do the timer. Right, literally 10 minutes, which is all I've got on that topic, I think. It's on. It's a very basic timer, guys. I'm not using my phone for this. It's a proper, if you have a look on YouTube, you can see. It's very nice, actually.
Yes, it is.
Off you go.
So, anyway, stop stalling so you don't have to talk about politics.
Oh, you've got me. You got my number.
I know what you're up to.
You know what I'm doing.
So for me, politics was like, I was raised in a really political household, and my dad was a politician for a while. He was part of the Save Kidderminster Hospital Party, which was the largest independent party in the UK for a good few years. And then he was a Labour MP, but he was also a trade union rep for the civil service. He was in the civil service, he was a trade union rep. And so I was always sort of brought up being aware of what was going on in the world. And I'm sort of interested, I'm invested, and I will read. The only problem I have is someone said to me once, you should go into politics. I was like, no, because I won't retain any of the details. I remember the general sort of information and that something is wrong, but then I can't remember why. I can't remember the specifics.
But maybe that explains why, you know, politicians, when they're asked specific questions, they go, I will say again, let me just say. And it's like, well, that's because you can't remember any of the facts, isn't it?
Yes.
I'd have to have a clipboard at all times.
Yes. Oh, I could see you with a clipboard.
Or just a PA feeding me the
Someone
info.
a puppet.
Right. I'd just have a puppet. Or I could be the puppet.
You could be the puppet.
I'll be your puppet. Right, anyway,
okay, you be my
political puppet.
But were you aware of it? Because I mean, when I look back at my family now, I'm really aware of that. In my dad's family, my dad is 9 years older than his sister, but my gran and his sister are conservative, and my dad and his father were really socialist, and so it's really interesting, and that happens in families, isn't it?
Well, there was never. I don't recall political debate at all or discussion. I think I know what political party my parents both voted for, but there wasn't any sort of discussion about I don't think we ever discussed serious things in my family. I don't remember that. I do remember, because obviously when we were young, Margaret Thatcher was in. When did she become Prime Minister?
It was the year before or the year after we were born, and then she was into like 1990. So she was there for the first 12 years of our life.
Yes, and so when she was, when the party voted her out, because that's what happened, wasn't it? There was a leadership contest.
Yes.
I remember just I felt like the foundations of the world were
Yes.
slightly unstable. I just
Yes.
couldn't quite fathom that Margaret Thatcher wasn't Prime Minister anymore, because it was just normal.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's because I hadn't got that understanding of how politics works. I vividly remember where I was sitting in the class. I vividly remember the class I was sitting in. It's one of those moments of oh God, what? Okay,
Yes.
are we still?
It's like the Queen's gone or
is it
something.
still turning? Is the world still? I don't understand. And I didn't understand her I didn't understand, her legacy, and I hadn't got a grip of that at all. So I would say I was very politically naive as a child, and I am sad about that, actually, and I hope that my children will be more politically aware.
That's interesting. It's two things. One, I remember exactly where I was when Margaret Thatcher was going out, because, well, maybe just before she went out, I remember being outside primary school. So actually, that couldn't have been when she went out. That was middle school. Yeah. I remember discussing with children outside primary school. I must have been we went up to 9 at primary school, about how awful Margaret Thatcher was. We were obviously all parroting our parents. But why do you feel sad that you weren't politically switched on as a child?
Because I think that actually carried through to when I went to university, it was the first year I could vote was when Tony Blair.
Yes, that was the day of my birthday.
Oh my God!
Right. That was my 18th.
So
birthday.
97.
Yeah.
No, is that right?
Yeah, 90.
I thought it was 97 because I was.
It was 97, so it was my 19th birthday.
Right.
It was my 19th birthday, but I did get to vote on my 18th as well, because it was local elections on my 18th. And then on my 19th, we voted the day before for Tony Blair, and then he got in on my birthday, and we went out for my birthday, and everyone was talking about it in sixth form.
So I'm quite confused now, actually, because 97, we would have been
19.
But aren't we born in
78? Yeah, so 97 makes us 19.
Oh, God, what's wrong with me?
Help
me.
Know, Susie.
Help me.
It's quite a wormhole to
help me with that. That's really concerning. Yeah, yeah.
How old did you think we were?
Don't worry, everybody. I thought we were 18. Look, I don't know. I've lost the ability to do basic mathematics. But let's talk about politics.
We've got phones and AI. We don't need that shit anymore. Who needs maths?
So we were 19, yes, and I remember being at university. I remember a hot day, and it was exciting because it was, everybody was voting. All my peers were voting Labour, but I don't. But to be honest with me, be honest with myself.
Well, that's deeply telling.
And with you guys, I don't think I wasn't fully aware or understanding of what all that was. I think. My experience in the art as an artist and within the arts has made my politics different to that of quite a lot of my family, probably. And that's interesting, isn't it? Because it's a lot about your background, who you're mixing with, what your focus is, I suppose. And I've certainly become more politically aware now, but I do think that for the first swathe of my existence, up till probably, really 30s, I would say, I wasn't really.
I can understand why people aren't. A lot of my friends are, and I know a few people that I'm related to, like, I just don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. And I suppose I am somebody who has a huge sort of sense of I don't like injustice in any way, shape or form.
Well, yes.
So I get quite passionate about stuff. Yeah. I remember, though, being in the common room in sixth form when Tony Blair was going to be elected, because basically I screwed up my GCSEs and had to repeat a year, which worked out well because I ended up with a husband and 2 children. But I do remember being...
And no GCSEs.
I do have some.
Is that why you screwed them up?
I do remember sitting in the common room and a lot of the boys and us all getting involved and being very political. And I remember 2 boys, Alex Depper He was very much
Good name.
everybody used to call him Tory boy, like Harry Enfield's character.
Yeah.
And then this guy Dan Tromans, and they were both he was very Labour, and they were both going at each other. And and we'd all sort of be everybody. I can see that everybody's sitting there and everybody putting their their tidbits in, almost parroting, I guess, what their parents were saying.
Well, of course.
Well.
I mean, at that point, yeah, I think. I mean, and honestly, at that time, your political views came from who you're listening to and watching the 10 o'clock news or whatever, or reading the papers. And now people are influenced by things they're watching on social media. You're getting little snippets of information, I think, now, but it doesn't always add up to a very comprehensive whole. Absolutely, fake news.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
and it's really interesting. I find it. My daughter's very political. My son is not so interested, but my daughter is really. Are we at 10 minutes?
Nearly. Got about 30 seconds.
My daughter is very political, but it's interesting because my dad would does describe himself as democratic socialist, and I think I sit sort of slightly more in the middle, and but it's interesting how your views change as well, isn't it? And how you can be friends. One of my friends, she's very far more right than me, and we sit and I'm gonna wrap it up, Carol Vorderman.
You've started, so you'll finish.
I started, so I'll finish.
It'll stop in a second. Because
I would say I'm left of centre. That's probably how I would describe myself. But we're quite sort of opposed on who we would vote for. But we will listen to each other, and we do talk about it. And I think that's so important as well, being able to listen to each other and not sort of try and shut each other down on things or force your views. And it's really important. And actually, we did go for a walk not long ago, the two of us, and she said something, and then I was like, well, that's because of this. And then I went home and researched it, and we were sort of sending each other messages about what was going on politically. And
that's really good.
It's really interesting. And I like the fact that you can be friends with people who have completely different views. I'm all for that. But I do post on social media if I'm quite passionate about it.
You do. Stuff. Do you know what? That does surprise me sometimes, because I would never put anything. Actually, that's not quite true. I've probably put a couple of things, but generally I would shy away from that.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think I don't think it works as a forum for discussion.
But I do get that.
But if there's something you're passionate about and information that you want to, I think that's fine. But I will say that there is somebody that both of us know who we don't communicate with anymore because of their political views. So she might be listening to this in America.
She's,
so if you like Trump, you can do one. As far as I'm concerned.
Yes, and quite passionately. She's really incredibly passionate about but incredibly right-wing things.
Freely admitting that she does not watch or read the news. It's all from social media.
That's weird. That's quite hard to stomach, isn't it? She's incredibly right-wing.
Mad.
Like not even a little bit, like full-on fascism. And that's
a bit strong.
But the thing is, one last thing I will say, is that the reason I do post sometimes on social media, like I reshared the post that Trump did about Trump Gaza on my private account, is because I feel so powerless, and I feel like people aren't seeing this. So if I share this, people might become aware from the misinformation that's going on out there. Like, why was that not covered in the news and stuff like that? And I was like, and you said to me, is this real? Has he put this on his account? Yes, he had.
I mean, he didn't create it. He didn't create it, but he did repost it. So
he did. And so when I get, it's a sense of frustration, I think, sometimes, to sort of like open your eye, like have a look at this, guys. If you haven't seen it, this is really important that you know that this is happening, because it's not being covered in mainstream news. But I do understand what you're saying about it doesn't necessarily work as a medium.
I think for discussion, it doesn't work, and I actually think written discussion is very difficult.
Yes, very difficult.
I'd rather be in a room with verbal discussion is the way forward, which is why we have this podcast and we're not writing a blog, because obviously we discuss really intense topics like politics every week.
Absolutely.
Just to reassure everybody out there, this is not going to be the usual topic.
Well, I think it's a great topic. I think
it is a great topic, but I think it's I feel like it's too big in a way for us to cover. But I like having analysed, my experience of it, and because it actually. Thank you, Heather, because it does remind me that I do need to make sure that my children are politically aware. I'm not going to dictate what they want to believe, but I think healthy discussion within a family about everything. And this is where you, I think, Esther, are quite an inspiration to me. I think because you do have healthy discussion around the dinner table about life and feelings and influences, and that's so important, especially in today's climate when there is so much out there that it is not true, that we do have platforms like this where we can say, just talk. I mean, I'm not going to tell anyone what to think, but I think actually encouraging people to talk is the best that we can do, and I hope that maybe people listening to this might go, oh yeah, I might have a discussion with my children about politics, or about, something that I might have seen on the news that concerned me, and that's the best thing to come out of today.
You know what? I think you're right, actually, because my dad said, I remember when Ian and I got married, he said, he gave a packet of love hearts to each of us in his wedding speech, and he said the key to a good marriage is communication. And I think communication is key in all aspects of life, which is often why I will leave voice. I do it less now, but leave voice WhatsApp, because I think that written communication can be so easily misinterpreted. But I also think it's really important to keep talking to each other, and like you say, sit around the dinner table and have a conversation. And I don't mind what my children's beliefs are, as long as they're not fascist. I want my eyes opened to stuff, and not to just end up in an echo chamber online absolutely. Of everything.
It's communication, community, actually being out there with people, and not sitting in an echo chamber, and not just believing everything you're reading on these little tiny terrifying computers in our pockets. But I think we have gone over by 7 minutes or so with good, but because it's an interesting topic, and we have embraced it as I didn't think I'd be able to, but I did. And also what I'm enjoying is looking at you. I'm just going to say this now, because, guys, we've done 5 seasons of, into our 5th season of Limited Time Only. And for the first 4, we did not look at each other, even if we're in the same room. No, we're always apart, but we would make sure we didn't look at the screen, or we'd have something else on the screen to hide each other, because we felt that we could talk better. But actually, I'm actually getting very much used to looking at you. Yeah. And it's not a problem. I'm not finding it a problem. So I just want to say that.
Thank you.
So you all get an idea. Yeah. You're quite nice to look at. And it's weird because, in a day-to-day, not anymore, day-to-day basis, obviously we would look at each other. And if we met up for chat, we would look at each other. But for some reason, we found that we couldn't do this podcast and look at each other. We distracted each other because we're so beautiful. I was like, I can't.
Yeah, we were just radiating.
I can't think.
I can't get my words out, Susie. I'm all of a flutter, all of a quiver.
And now you're like, oh no, she's all right.
No, I'm just used to it now. I've grown up, I've matured. I can cope with your beauty.
Thank you, and I can cope with yours. Okay, good. But and everyone else can cope with it now, because you can see us on YouTube.
Yow chow.
So please look at YouTube. Specifically at Limited Time Only podcast videos would be great. Not just looking at it, but play those. Yeah. And join the LTO community by clicking on the link below in the show notes.
We've gone over by 10 minutes. Woo!
Great timekeeping.
Yes.
See you next week.
Bye. Bye. Tarbit.
You have been listening to Limited Time Only. Brief. Small but perfectly formed. Just like me.